Welcome to Better Relationships, Better Life, a podcast where you'll gain insights from relationship experts and entrepreneurial couples who have moved through conflict and into a better life. Crack the clarity code and create deeper connections beyond the messiness of relationships. Here's your host, Judy K. Herman.
Before we begin this amazing episode, I want you to know that a lot of what we share here applies not only to couples, but also to relationships in your organization. If you're looking for a speaker for your next event, I would love to support you. Just go to judyspeaker.com. Today, we're talking with Chris and Shelly Chamberlin about how to embrace change for lasting connection. We'll take a peek into their 32 years of learning and growing throughout seasons of their marriage. Let's listen in. Welcome to Better Relationships, Better Life. My name is Judy Herman, and I have some remarkable guests that are going to be talking about transformation, and we're just going to get to know them. So we've got Chris and Shelly Chamberlin here, and they've been college sweethearts. I think that's a neat way to meet, and they've been married for 32 years. Well, y'all must have gotten married when you were 12 or something. I don't know.
Close. Pretty close.
They are the owners and operators of Chamberlin Real Estate and LionHeart Transformation Coaching. When they were not busy facilitating transformational breakthroughs or brokering real estate dreams, they enjoy world travel and all the outdoor adventures and four seasons of Colorado and the Rocky Mountains. Oh, y'all live in a beautiful place for sure. So Christopher and Shelly are the proud parents of two now adult boys. So they would be called sons instead of boys, right? When they're adults, you gotta start calling them sons.
Yeah, they're always boys to us.
Yeah.
And they got a grandson, and then they've got a miniature dachshund named Cooper.
Yeah, say hi, Cooper.
He's going to be in and out. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He might be in and out. He's our only child right now.
Both are lifelong students of mindset and transformation in pursuit of the highest levels of experience, growth, and contribution. So you're going to have to tell us, Shelly and Chris, how did you two get together? How did you find yourselves on a college campus, I'm sure, right? Is what you said. College sweethearts, right?
There's two versions of that story, Judy. There's there's my version, where I woo her and, and she falls in love with me. And then there's her version. Which one do you want?
Well, we met in the car on our way to a Bible study group. The campus minister was making the drive around campus, picking people up. And I was the first person and he was the second person. And we were friends in a very small group of college students before we got married. But yeah,
I met in the back seat of the campus minister's car. I remember getting in the back seat and seeing this beautiful blonde hair, blue-eyed, gorgeous smile, and I was pretty much smitten. I think Shelly said
I couldn't get past his ugly sweater.
Yeah, I was wearing a ugly sweater, and she thought I was a total dork, I guess. But
oh wow! So love at first sight for you, huh, Chris?
Absolutely, yeah. It took some work. I had to work on Shelly and show her that.
But his smile was winning. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it wasn't until 15 years of marriage that she finally found that turquoise 80s sweater and threw it away, without me knowing. She threw it away. Yeah.
Well, tell us more about the two of you, because you've got two sons, two grown sons and a grandson, right? You're at a different stage of life than when you first met and first started out. So tell us, what was it besides the physical attraction and the ugly sweater, right? Tell us, what was it that drew you two together to date or to even get married? Yeah. Some people get married right away after they had met. So tell us a little bit more about that journey.
Well, hindsight's 2020, right? So
Yeah.
about 32 years of marriage wisdom now, looking back, what stands out to me is, wow, that was the beginning of a major part of our spiritual journey. Getting in the back seat of the college minister's car. We shortly after getting married, we actually traveled to Gainesville, Florida, together to be part of a ministry. So.
Well, it's funny because we both came from very different backgrounds, and you don't know what you don't know, right? At age 20.
You definitely don't know, especially at age 20. You don't know.
Yeah.
You think you do.
I mean, I think when we both were getting into that car, we were both kind of we were both hurting and looking for something at age 20. We came from very different backgrounds, and I do believe that was a great foundation for us, though. We were part of a very traditional church, although neither one of us was raised that. I had a pretty stable home, grew up in the same home my entire life. Chris had 7 stepfathers, and but both of us had a lot of, we were looking for our own personal journey, like just seeking something. At that age, you're seeking something.
Yeah.
And I think that beginning did give us a very solid foundation.
Yeah.
Spiritually, though, because we kind of started with common core values.
Yes.
That we have adhered to, those common core values throughout our journey, and that we keep coming back to. We're not in the same place spiritually. We're together in the same place spiritually, but very different from where we began.
That's interesting. I would really be very curious about, because there's so many couples that get together and one grows. And like when you say you were in a different place spiritually, but you're both together, you go back to your core values. Can you share with us some of maybe the journey that you've been through?
Yeah.
But there's so many people that grow apart instead of together, but obviously you two have grown together for you to be on the screen, right?
Intentional, I remember even, I'll just say this, and then Chris, take it away, but I do remember, at different times, one of us was kind of veering off this way and like, wait, well, what are you studying? What are you doing? For me, myself anyway, I intentionally was like, ooh, he's going to leave me in the dust. I want to learn more about that. So I felt some separation going.
Yeah. And you hit on a very important piece of the puzzle here, which is core values. Shelly mentioned core values, and so if I was to draw a diagram, and Shelly's been using her hands, and it looks very much like that. The core values are the trajectory, and if it's going up, it's a straight line going up. Those are the core values, the core beliefs that there is a power greater than us, whether it be God, universe, energy, the collective. So that's a core value that we believe. Another core value that we were taught very early on and that we adhere to was never ever bring up the D word when you're in a fight. Divorce is not an option. So core value. And then in our personal development, our personal transformations, we might be studying different things, and it may look like, and sometimes it feels like, we're going out away from each other, but there's that core value that brings us back together. Mm-hmm. And so it really looks like our relationship looks like this.
And so I know that this, like, some folks are going to be just listening, and so what you're demonstrating is this ebb and flow, right, Chris? You're demonstrating an ebb and flow and a contraction and an expansion. I think is what from that diagram, what you did with your hands there. Really
an expansion, and I wouldn't use the word contraction. We're actually expanding and then attracting.
Oh, I love that. Yes,
Yeah, we're
expanding
expanding and then attracting back together. So, we're expanding in our personal growth and transformation, and then it's those core values that attracts us back together, holds us together for 32 years.
That's amazing, because I failed to say that I met the two of you. When was it? Just a few weeks ago or a couple months ago.
Yeah,
and I just love the energy that you two have. Where Chris and I are in the same mastermind program, and so we've gotten to know each other. And then I just I can tell you two. It's kind of like when you go to a social setting, and like for example, your reunion, your high school reunion, and you see couples that have been together a long time, you know which ones are happy and which ones are like miserable with each other. But you two, you have this, I noticed that right away when I had met you and talked with you, and we sat at the same table and learning some of the same things. I noticed something about the two of you. There was some core, you two, obviously nobody has not gone through 32 years of marriage and not had some times of challenges.
Oh yeah, there's some times.
Some intense.
Yeah.
Yes.
But what I'm hearing from the two of you, just like allowing, or even here's what I'm hearing, is that there's an appreciation of each other's differences, an appreciation of the growth. And that's what I'm hearing about when you say the contraction, or not the contraction, but the attraction, the expanding, the contraction, and then you're coming together. Right. That is amazing.
I think one of the core values, let me think about this, that has really stood out for me is I made a decision a long time ago that my spiritual journey was that I was responsible for my spiritual journey, and he was responsible for his spiritual journey. And so whatever, there's a lot of different religions will use different languages, right? Around behaviors. And when we were both hurting, it's really hard in a relationship to not take things personally. But making a decision that's his journey. It's not about me. This is my journey. And this is about, so, because I think it could have driven us apart. And so taking responsibility for our own growth.
Yeah.
Well, that is huge, because so much in certain theologies or interpretations of scripture, and, the wife's supposed to be submissive and let the husband lead, or feeling responsible for the other's spiritual destination or journey. It's just like, how did you get to that point? I'm curious, Shelly, how did you get to that point where I know I'm responsible for me, Chris is responsible for himself? Was there something that happened in your life that was that aha moment?
That's a great question. I think there's just been different women that have influenced me along my journey that I'm super grateful for, that kept driving me back to that. I do think that, and my mom was a women's libber. And, so I did hear different things along the way, and was raised, to that, beliefs that don't depend on a man, all of that, and yet then I came into this very traditional Christian church that was completely the opposite, not depending on a man, but I can't say it was any one thing, Judy. I just, it's been different women, and especially as I get to this point of my life, that is really striking a chord with me, because now, as an empty nester, having been primarily a stay-at-home mom, but really taking ownership of, okay, gosh, now I'm a woman in her 50s. What do I want to do in this chapter now?
Yeah,
and so that's probably why I'm using that dialogue.
Love that. So she changed the dance then, didn't she, Chris? And when I say the dance of your relationship, that we're talking about relationship patterns, right? We have expectations, whether they're conscious or subconscious. But it gives some feedback on your end, what that was like.
Yeah, when you said she changed the dance, there was and to Shelly's point, it didn't happen like one day, boom, right? But one day, yeah, I woke up and she's no longer the nurturer. I'm no longer this 21-year-old that still misses my mom.
Yeah.
And maybe seeking some of that nurturing from Shelly. Instead, she's a grown woman. I'm a grown man. And now we've matured as individuals, and we take responsibility for our own personal development. And I take responsibility for the meaning that I choose to give the experiences that I have.
Wow.
That
is so well said. Actually, Chris, what you just said is the kind of thing I talk about in my counseling sessions with couples that I work with, because yes, what worked in childhood doesn't work in adulthood, in adult relationships, and then, coming together when you're in your early 20s, even, and your brain's not totally online until your mid 20s, but having these aha moments, if they're not aha moments, maybe these aha journey, right? You get more conscious. So you explain that beautifully.
Yeah. And Judy, I would and the last piece that I would add to that is, now that we actually made a decision, our 30th anniversary, like, are we going to do we want to spend the rest of our life together? There's we're not stuck here. Like we can decide, either we want to be together for the rest of our life or we don't. And that was a little bit scary. Like, we really took the time for that to sink in individually and
we were kind of at a stale moment. And we had talked about renewing our vows, and then we realized, not really into, like, I don't know. We both were feeling really kind of just, at least I was feeling kind of stuck. And I think that asking that question freed us up to being present in the now. And it was more about really deepening our authenticity with one another,
right?
And creating that
and showing back up as individuals. That now it's a decision to co-create together.
Oh, wow!
And so now we approach life either with a hell yes or a hell no. And if it aligns with what we want to experience, what we want to create together in our experiences, how we want to grow, and how we want to contribute, if it's a hell yes and aligns with that, that's what we move forward together with.
Wow. This is really great. I so appreciate you sharing, because so many people, like, they experience the doubts and they're not allowing themselves to explore that. I do know of some healthy couples that ask themselves that every year. Why am I married? Why are we together? And that's a healthy thing to do, because then you don't get stuck and you do have choices. But then, what a beautiful thing. Thank you so much for sharing that, Chris, because obviously then there's this renewed commitment, this renewed growth. Like, what worked before may not be working now, and how to change that, but not together for obligation, but really asking those soul searching questions that you two have allowed yourself to do with each other. That sounds so, what I call a therapist term, sounds so emotionally safe, just to be showing up and being real with each other. By the way, I'm going to ask you a therapist question. Were there therapists that entered into your life? How did you figure this out where you are at this stage? I mean, or any stage. Like, how did you go through those stages?
That's
Because,
a
like,
great question.
yeah.
You want me to answer first?
Sure, go for it.
Because I had a lot of therapy.
Yeah, you know what? Therapy doesn't have to be a bad word.
No, it's not a bad word.
No, not at all. Thank God.
I think seeking outside help in any shape is great.
Yeah.
To ask for help.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Thank God for therapy. And in general, just a number of advisors, you know. And today I tell people I have a spiritual advisor, I have a financial advisor, I have a business coach, I have a mindset coach, you know. And so, yeah, I know that it's taken a tribe to raise me, and for me to continue to transform and grow. I definitely have received a lot of help along the way.
Wow.
I do think that we've had, I would say, there was a time when I can't say it was the best of therapists though either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, and that can put you in a frustrated because you're asking for help and it's not, you know, really seeking out. I think again, that's taking ownership for someone else telling me, we'll do this. And I'm like, it doesn't sit right with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the advice. And yeah, so I feel like, again, asking for help, but really looking for finding the right. There's so many different modalities to get
There
help.
are.
And
Would you say that that's probably a big shift for you, was getting to the point, realizing at some point that your power is in here, and it's not necessarily something that therapists can give you, but they can maybe facilitate you discovering that power that's within you? Was that a big shift?
well, yeah, that was through more coaching than therapy, but yes, I mean, there's been lots of questions that have come up for us in the 32 years of marriage. And then the idea of spending a lifetime with someone, if you're committed to having a life partner, monogamy, you know, there's all these different ways of being in partnership with one another. And these are all different aspects of a partnership, right? And what do you want to weave together? And so my idea of that has really evolved and changed to be able to, I love the fact you said the other couple said they do it every year. And that's probably something that, yeah, I mean, to stay authentic and be in a partnership, I think it's an ongoing process, because there's health issues that come up and changing. There's financial things. There's, you know, stuff with our children, all kinds of things that throw us curves. And so,
That's true, you know, and there is absolutely no way a 22-year-old can even ask these kind of questions. And
no,
it is,
you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. I do want to go back to something that you said, Shelly, and you're right, Chris. We need to take ownership of our own growth. And it's common. I think there's even some statistics that it takes about 5 tries to find the right therapist that really fits with you. So it's not unusual. So if you are, those that are listening, if you're looking for a therapist and that hasn't been a good match for whatever reason, keep looking, because you're so worth it.
Yes.
And if it is a therapist or if it is a coach, you want to align yourself. I love it, Chris, that you have so many people. It takes a village. Yes. And it takes a village to really have a great and growing, resilient marriage. So I think this is beautiful that both of you brought that out. So I have some other questions unless something else is bubbling up in the two of you that you want to share.
Go for it.
Okay. So couple things I could go in the direction here, because in my opinion, raising kids, especially raising teenagers, I don't know how close your boys are in age, or your sons, I should say, your adult sons. But tell us about what you believe is the most challenging time of a marriage and how you got through it.
Wow. Well, let's see. Do you want me to take that one?
We probably will have very different answers. Go ahead.
Gosh, the most challenging time for me, man, it was just finding me. Finding me and loving me. I mean, I just, again, hindsight's 2020. Like just recently, this was so profound. During I was receiving coaching, and my coach brought up this idea that until you lose yourself, or when you lose yourself, you can connect with something greater than yourself. And so the hardest part for me was the journey of really understanding myself and loving myself. But because before I could love myself, the ways that I thought I was loving my kids and my wife, which was a workaholic, so grinding, working really, really hard to provide for them. And that was, to me, I thought, this is how I'm expressing love. And don't you see that this is how I love you and the kids? And Shelly and the kids, they just wanted me present. And so what was so the insight I just got recently was that I can't love somebody else until I love myself. And all of those things that I was doing was really for myself. So I wasn't really doing those things because I loved my wife and my kids. I was doing those things to try to love myself, to try to feel good about myself, to feel good enough, to feel like I was doing enough, because I didn't love myself.
You walk in the light. Oh, I'm sorry, Shelly. You walk in the light with what you're given, and so I really want to give folks hope. And I think those are raising kids and really identify with exactly what you're saying, Chris, and that's going on in your marriage right now. You can realize there is more to you. And yeah, it'd be nice to have the wisdom of a couple decades from now, but realizing it's so important, isn't it, to really pay attention to what your wife might be saying to you at the time. Honey, we need you at home. But you go ahead and share, Shelly, share with your perspective.
We got married so young. You said what stage of life, or what with our children was the most challenging, and how did we get through it? We got married. We were still trying to establish ourselves financially as 20-year-olds. We had our first son when let's see, I was 24, and then our next son 3 years later. They're 3 years apart. So, and we took literally we moved. I don't even know how many times the first 10 years of our marriage. I actually had to write it down recently for my son, because he's like trying to get an understanding. But yeah, getting married very young is very different than getting married starting a family in your 30s, right? So there was that. So I definitely do think that trying to get established, and neither one of us really knew ourselves, right? getting through it, I think I for myself as a woman, I had a lot of great female friendships. I relied on the other women in my life a lot, raising kids. I think we can feel like we're isolated, and that definitely helped me a lot as a young mom. I think that having a community, there's so many families that are not living near their families, near their respect, and they don't have a hard time asking for help. And I had a great support system in that. I mean, we were in a babysitting co-op with really great trusted friends, things like that, community was so important. We didn't have our respective communities. So we've moved around a lot. And so we've always been intentional about creating community.
That is huge. And I really want folks to pay attention to that, because in my book, I do talk about John Gottman's 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the 4 horsemen that are the ones that destroy marriages. But I really think there's 5. So there's accusation, there's defensiveness, there's contempt and stonewalling. I could go into details, but I don't want to right now. But isolation, I think, is definitely a killer of relationships. And you've got to, well, I think it's beautiful that you did, Shelly. You had a great support system, other girlfriends, and you demonstrated that. So that, to me, I think is a wonderful thing that you maybe didn't even know was such a nurturing thing for your marriage. I think it's
really
remarkable. But so many times, especially when folks are going through really challenging times in their marriages, and then there's shame or guilt, or and they isolate themselves. But there's so much messiness in life anyway. And if we could just be open and normalize that human struggle, I think is pretty profound. I mean, of course you're going to go through these things because it's taken you and brought you to where you are now, right? What a gift, though, Shelly and Chris, that I believe you're giving your grown sons and their families, that you're giving them this, your own life. You're growing. You're not the same people when you were raising them, right?
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah. What's it like being a grandparent? You got your grandparents to one grandson?
Yeah.
It's amazing. Of course, we'd love to have more time with the grandson. Really looking forward to our trip to Florida, and getting that time with the grandson. But I'll say maybe one of the most rewarding parts of being a grandfather is having my son say things to me like, "Oh, Dad, I finally get it. I'm so sorry I acted this way or that way," or "Oh my God, I know you told me so many times, but now I get it." That's the most rewarding part for me of being a grandfather.
I think the pendulum always swings, though, as a parent. I was having a conversation with one of my girlfriends about this, that, we're coming to terms with things that in our relationships currently, because we're in the generation now, like our parents are older, and we helped Chris's mom move into an assisted living facility. And there's things that you go through that you don't realize until you're at that stage of life. Right. But as we were growing up as young parents, we're like, I hated it when my mother did this, or I hated this, and so then we almost go to the opposite end of the spectrum. And so as a mom, and my son has a kid, and of course my relationship with the women in my son's lives, my daughter-in-law, I want so much to let them have their own experience, and to not be judgmental of how they're doing it or whatever. It's gonna be their experience, and it's beautiful. And that, so as this stage of our lives as grandparents, it's so wonderful to get to just let go and just enjoy them,
Yes.
because their journey is going to be their journey.
Yes.
However it plays out, I'm
Just
learning
be
how to
supportive.
just to be supportive and have not detachment, but non-attachment in that process.
It's
Because I do
like,
worry. I worry. Of course you worry, but then,
Yeah.
I'm trying to like just go of that.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Letting them be who they are, right? Knowing what's yours and knowing what's theirs. That's really beautifully said. So, uh, two more things. I know I need to let you go because I don't want to keep you too long. Y'all have been so gracious with your time. What is one piece of advice that you would give to a couple who is in the midst of those challenges, whether it's they're raising their kids or whatever? What would you tell them?
Judy, I don't know. This is the first thing that popped in my head. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
That's good. That's good, Chris.
I have been transformed from, very young childhood tragedy to triumph, from the grind to grace and ease, from stress to flow. And I experienced that in my life, in my relationships. But I know, looking back on 32 years of marriage, that some of the most difficult times were the friction that created the diamond in our relationship. That it's all of it that makes our relationship rich and strong. And so, if you're in the midst of it, it's the crucible. It will pass over. What's coming is going. You can get through it, and you will be stronger on the other side of it.
That is beautiful. And to surround yourself with a village, right?
Yeah, community is so important. Yeah, and don't do it alone.
That's right. Wow, that's powerful. Shelly, any closing words for you?
Yeah, I was just thinking about lately, the last few years, what I've really held to is what I'm experiencing coming from a place of love. Am I feeling like I'm in a place of love, or am I feeling in a place of fear? And I guess that, and really looking at, I want so much, anything that's coming from a place of fear, or I guess a lot of people would say you're being in a primal state. You're afraid, is not going to produce the outcome that I want. And so anymore, just whatever my viewpoint is in relationship to my children, my husband, the situation, just trying to come from a place of love and making a decision. Making a decision over and over again, because it can sound like an oversimplification. If there's been a lot of pain and things that will make us feel afraid, and get caught up in the story of it's always been this way, or this is whatever. You can have those especially as life goes on, and you have those. You can get stuck in a habit of how you're relating to one another or whatever. If one person makes the decision, hopefully both will, but you can change the pattern just by deciding to come from a place of love. It forces the other person to respond differently, right?
Yes, it's going to change the dance. It'll change that energy in between that relationship. You two, it has been really such an honor to meet with you, because this is so awesome that I mean, some of the things you're talking about here, I'm just hearing you're really appreciating the growth, the human journey of growth and transformation, and knowing that there is a purpose to the pain, and the narrative of that makes a huge difference. That is so valuable. So how can folks, if they want to know more about you two, and how can they get in touch with you?
Well, Judy, I'll send you some links. But you know that I have been working with David Bayer and the phenomenal methodology
Yes.
that he teaches. I'm now a certified transformative mindset coach, and I offer a free 90-minute strategy session, and I'll send you the link if anybody that is interested in getting on a call, having a conversation, really taking a look at where you're at, where you want to be, and identifying what's getting in the way, and really starting immediately, even in that free strategy session, laying some foundation for transformation, because transformation can happen in an instant. It can happen in a moment. As soon as we recognize a limiting belief, and we can turn that around and create an empowering belief and start stacking evidence, transformation begins.
That's great. Yeah, all of this will be in the show notes about how to get in touch with you. But I so appreciate you two. It is, like I said, it's just been very inspiring. And I know that you all are giving hope to others that you encounter. But there's nothing that takes the place of 32 years of marriage and being on the other side, at least today, some wonderful smiles on your faces. and it's like, definitely you're living your transformation. There's no doubt. And that is so a beautiful, beautiful testimony. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah. Thank you, Judy.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate you so much.
Appreciate
Looking
what
forward
work
to
you're
seeing
doing.
you.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
You're coming to
Bye-bye.
Colorado Springs.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Didn't you just enjoy this conversation with Chris and Shelly? They show us what's possible in our lifelong partnerships, which includes growth and connection. Here's a few of my takeaways. Number one, it's so important to identify and remember your core values, because your marriage will change. Number two, why it's so valuable to have a village to support you and your relationship. Make sure that you surround yourself with healthy friendships and include coaching or therapy. And number three, it's okay to ask, why did we get married in the first place? And do we still want to be together? Although it may be scary, it could lead to more commitment and connection together. What stood out to you? Share your takeaways by going to betterrelationshipsbetterlife.com. Next week, we'll talk with Karen McMahon, who is a divorce coach. Yes, we're going to address the D word. She helps us journey beyond divorce and into a better life. Until then, feel free to share, subscribe, rate, and comment in the streaming platform of your choice. See you next time.